Have you heard about Anchor? It's the easiest way to make a podcast, and it's the way I'm making my podcast right now. And it's free. They have creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. And Anchor is going to distribute your podcast to all the major important places you would ever want, like Spotify and Apple and so many more places. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything that you need to make a podcast all in one place. I love it. It's so simple. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hello, friends, and welcome to the Intuitive Psychologist Podcast. I'm Lindsay Pandya, and I am a licensed clinical psychologist who's been in the mental health field for over 15 years. I am so grateful to be part of the mental health field, especially since in this day and age, mental health is really coming online as to how important it is to not only have it, but to have the conversations and normalize what many of us all go through. We all, from time to time, and sometimes for far too long, struggle with our mental health. The one piece, though, about mental health that I feel is missing so much is the conversation around spirituality and how important it can be to be tapped into the spiritual side of you to help with your mental health. Thankfully, I feel like in this current climate, people are having a spiritual awakening at an ever-increasing rate, which can be jarring and scary and confusing, and you may even think that you're losing your mind a bit. So my intention with this podcast is to bridge the gap between spirituality and mental health, and I want to bridge the gap through normalizing not only mental illness, mental health issues, but to also normalize typical spiritual awakening symptoms, give you some guidance as to how to manage a spiritual awakening. I bring on guests to help talk about different modalities to connect you in to your spiritual nature. And I want to do all of this with the intention to help you grow and to know that you are not alone and that there's help out there for you. So please join me on this journey through my own self-discovery with mental health problems, with challenging life events, and going through my spiritual awakening and continued spiritual growth. Join me and my friends as we have these interesting and sometimes very difficult conversations, not only about mental health, but also about a spiritual journey. So welcome, friends, and enjoy. Welcome back, my friends, to another episode of the Intuitive Psychologist Podcast. Want to start off this episode by giving you all a heartfelt apology for being MIA and inconsistent over the last couple of months. I want you all to know that I take this podcast very seriously, and I take you all very seriously. And I don't take this information or this podcast for granted. I really was trying to practice what I preach, which is to honor where we are all at in each moment, to not force ourselves to do things when either the time is wrong, our body or our mind needs something different. And it's a very masculine type energy that I'm trying to move away from and move more into like a feminine energy, which just so that you know, I don't mean like male and female as in like gender. and sex. I actually mean it as in we all have both energies within us, and the masculine is more of the push, do it anyway, get through it, suck it up kind of energy, which can be kind of on the toxic end of masculinity, into the more flow, intuition, inner guidance, allow energy. And so for the last couple of months, I have really hit hibernation mode. And how perfect, given that the season that we're in is the end of fall and the beginning of winter. And so there's a lot of death energy, but there's also massive hibernation energy. And so that has been hitting me very hard the last couple of months. And I don't know how long it will go on for, but I have been going through a lot the last couple of months. And I'm not just like saying, a lot of horrible things have happened. Yes, some difficult things have definitely happened, but the energy that I've been in, both personally and I think also collectively, the energy has been very introspective, going within and slowing down. So I've been trying to respect that. But I want you all to know that I also respect you all very much. And I appreciate those that are still listening, that got through these last couple of months with the episodes coming out maybe once every 2 weeks, give or take. I would love to say that moving forward that I'll get back into the once a week consistency. But to be honest, I mean, we're still in winter, so I don't know what the next few months hold. But I know how disappointing it can be to not have things be consistent, or to feel like somebody is just taking things for granted. So I'm really sorry about that. Today's episode is about death energy, and I want to cover a couple of different topics about death. I want to talk about actual physical death and my own spiritual beliefs about what happens when we die. And then I also want to talk to you about metaphysical death, or loss in general, like loss in partnering with your significant other, a loss of friendships, a loss in finances, housing, jobs, family, all of that. And also death of versions of you that must die out. And then just ask you some questions about, what are your fears about death and loss, and to talk to you about some overall grief tips and some rituals you can do to honor the dead. So I'm hopeful that this will be helpful to some degree or another. I know that when it comes to actually physically losing people in your life, especially to physical death, that there's not a whole lot people can say or do that's going to help you feel better about it. And I don't want to minimize physical death in any way and say that that is equally as painful as, say, a metaphysical death, or, a breakup or friends not being around anymore, but they're still physically here. So there's always the hope. So I don't want to make light of the gravity of physical death, especially given what we are all dealing with right now, which is COVID being the most severe it has been, this entire time. This is absolutely the worst it has been. And so we do have a lot of our loved ones actually leaving Earth right now. So I don't want to make light of that in any way with anything that I have to say. Death is often very traumatic. It can feel traumatic even if you do have some forewarning, whether it's hours or days or weeks or even years. It can feel traumatic. But death really is what is necessary to bring in birthing energy, new life energy, and is part of nature's cycle. So we are currently in January of 2021. We are in death energy in the midst of winter, which will bring about spring and bring about newness. So I welcome you all to sort of keep that in mind when we deal with death energy. This is hard, and yes, we must get through it, and yes, we must mourn the losses, but we also can remember that by allowing this death energy, that we are also allowing in new stuff too. Now, this doesn't take away the loss of a parent or a best friend by any means. So let's first start off by talking about physical death, and let's talk about what are some of your fears around death in general, right? So like maybe sit down, and this could be like a journaling exercise to do when you're not actually dealing with death and loss actively, because I think that when you are grieving a loss, that this might not be the best time to then explore your own personal beliefs, but follow your inner intuition and guidance. But I would, again, do that when you've in a decent mental space to hold these questions and really play out what the answers are. But, ask yourself or write about, how was death discussed in your family and in your culture, right? Some cultures really know how to honor and respect the death process and honor and respect the dead. How has death touched your life, especially as a child? For us, it was, we had so much death in my childhood. Starting off for me, even before I was born, my brother Paul, he died at the age of 2, a pretty fucking traumatic death. He died, we have a bleeding disorder in the family. It's like hemophilia, or it could just be hemophilia. I've had both be told to me now. But it's where your blood doesn't clot, or it clots inconsistently. For females, we are mostly carriers, so we may have some heavy periods, easier bruising, that kind of thing, and we need preventative stuff for, like, if we're having surgery, then there are things that doctors will do. They'll give us a certain medication to help our blood clot, but it's mostly the males in our family that will have really bad outcomes. And at that time, before I was born, the technology and the knowledge about what we've got wasn't great. And so at the age of 2, sadly, on New Year's Eve night, he tragically died. He had whooping cough. And so he was coughing, and he coughed so much that it burst a blood vessel. And it was very traumatic for everyone involved. I'll just leave it at that. It was very traumatic for everyone involved, and my family didn't recover from that. And I was born a few years after he had passed away. So my family has been riddled with death for me starting at a very, very young age. So that was before I was born, then after I was born, I had a cousin die of a drug overdose, accidental drug overdose. As you all have heard, my father took his life when I was 19. All of my grandparents have passed away. My maternal grandmother had passed away when my mom was in her early 20s, and so she had to step up as a mother figure to her younger brother. That was a traumatic death that they had to experience. She had cancer, from what I can remember. My grandpa, my step-grandmother, which was very hard. I was in middle school, and I'm named after her. My middle name is her maiden name, and so I had a very deep connection with her, along with a couple other of my close family members. I had a deep connection with. Even though I didn't have a lot of time with her, I did have a very deep connection with her. And so when she had a stroke, and after her stroke, her children and my mom and aunts and uncle had a falling out, and so she was in nursing home for a little bit of time before she passed away. So that was emotionally traumatic. It was also really hard to see her go from regular old grandma to can't walk, can't feed herself, can't do anything. It was really hard in middle school to deal with that. Who else? Then my aunt and her son, my cousin, both died of a pretty traumatic cancer, each totally different types of cancers, but they both came down with terminal cancer at the exact same time and died within a few months of each other. So that was pretty awful. So all of this sort of death was around me and my family. I'd say until my father took his life, I want to say that there was just like year after year, death after death constantly. And so yeah, we became a little too familiar with death, and it doesn't get easier. And I think the circumstance around death and who it is makes each death different. Different stages of your own personal life make it hard too, but that was very difficult to get through. So I feel like I have a very intimate relationship with death, and I can't say that I am great at guiding people out of death, right? So to help support those that are dealing with death, because there isn't a whole lot people can say to you to make you feel better. I remember one of my very first jobs as in the mental health field, paid job in the mental health field. I had a teenage girl whose mom had died, and I was to go into the home and work with her. And I was like fucking lost as to like what to tell her to do and how to help her get through it. And I know I didn't do a good job. I know that I wasn't there in the way that she probably needed me to be. And even as a psychologist now, working with people, I think I'm a little bit better at it, but it's uncomfortable. It's hard to talk about. It is hard for us to know what to do and how to help people when they are dealing with death. And so often the thing that we can do is just not be there and just sort of fade away because it makes us feel uncomfortable. So I have definitely been guilty of that I don't know what to say, so I just don't say anything at all, or I don't check in. But with that being said, some things that we can do to help people that are dealing with. So if I'm trying to support somebody who has just had a death, right? So I'm not personally affected and I'm trying to be their support system. One is just keeping them company, right? So that they don't have a lot of like alone time where they can really get sucked into a mental vortex. Now, they do need time to process and feel it and be sad and angry and go through all the 5 stages of grief. But mainly, like, don't just not reach out to them because you're uncomfortable. Like, you kind of need to suck it up a little bit and try to be there for them. Something you can do is also to relieve burdens off of their plates so that they can actively engage more in the grieving process. And it may be that, you know, if they've got children, that you help care for their children for a little bit, cook and clean, that kind of stuff can be very supportive, like the doing, asking them how they're feeling, talking to them about the person who had passed away, if they're okay with that, right? Some people don't want to talk about it, so you have to honor and respect wherever they're at, but to ask them, you know, or to reminisce sometimes if you know the person. It can be nice to reminisce when it's the right time. And it's hard to know when the fuck is the right time. Some people see death as just a transition, which I'll talk about shortly, and so they are sad, they miss them, but they also see it as a celebration of their life. So knowing how to be supportive for each person individually, and that may be dependent on your relationship with them, you know, trying to do things where when you see them kind of going too far deep into a hole, to like pull them out through levity, comedy, distractions sometimes, right? So we don't distract so that they never process. We just distract to give them some relief so that they can have the energy to continue with the grieving process. So that's just a couple of helpful tips for how you can help others through the death process. Have them ask them to tell you about this person and what they meant to you, and that kind of thing can be helpful too. But when you are dealing with your own grief, things that you can do on your own. And these tips for grief are good for whether you're grieving a physical death of somebody you care about, grieving the death of a version of you that needs to go away, grieving loss of a job, loss of a friend, a breakup, financial losses, like any kind of loss. You can kind of adapt and modify any of these grieving tips with that. So you can write a letter to your loved one, telling them everything that you want them to know. You could write a letter, an angry letter to God. Fuck you, God. Why did you take my so-and-so away? I'd burn that one. I'm a big lover of burning or getting rid of things that, while it needs to come out, doesn't need to linger, right? Like God's, in my opinion, God's not going to be mad that you're mad at God, because God is all loving, all knowing, caring, kind, and compassionate. So my version of God would be like, yeah, I understand why this pisses you off, because, you know, it is a part of life and it does have to happen. And far too often, good people go too quick or too soon or too painfully. And a lot of times death doesn't seem fair and justified, but yeah, like write an angry letter to God, tell God to fuck off. You're pissed. It doesn't make sense. It's not right. It's not fair. Talking to the person as if they're here. I truly believe that they can hear you. So whenever you think about them or try to talk to them or write a letter to them, you know, they, in my opinion, take it or leave it, they hear you, they see you, they're with you. Maybe there's a ritual you can do where, you could, if you're into having an altar, which really all I see for an altar is like a dedicated space for your spiritual practice or your spiritual work. It can be a side table, it can be a dresser, it can be a cupboard, it can be anything that you want it to be. It could be a tin that you hide under your bed because you don't want your family to know that you're woo-woo. Anyway, you could have an altar for your loved one, and you can put a picture up. You can have something that is their favorite item, something that maybe they gave you or that you got to take from their belongings after they had passed. A lot of folks, and this is just like a watered down thing, you can definitely Google this to get more specific information about this, but people will set out food and drink to honor their loved one. And so they'll either make them a plate of what they've already made for dinner and just set it aside for them, or they will make them like something that they really enjoyed. Like maybe if it's somebody that loved to drink whiskey, they'll pour a little bit of whiskey and leave that out overnight as, an offering to their loved one. Or they'll make them their favorite food or cake or something like that and honor them in that way. Now, I agree with this, is that when you do that you give back to the earth. You don't just throw it away in the trash when it's done. That if it's anything that animals can eat, that you should return that to the earth. So putting the plate out for animals to eat the scraps, if it's safe for the animals. If it's not, then maybe you can put it in a compost pile or bury it in the dirt or something to that effect. If it's a liquid, you can just pour it into the grass so that you're recycling, because the whole point of the 4 seasons is it's cyclical. And so death is important because it gives life, right? So when the leaves fall off of the tree, it creates, I think it's mulch or whatever, where like the leaves will disintegrate, and that goes and feeds the soil for springtime for the crops to grow back up. So I do think that that's a really good idea, is to like put that back out there. Maybe you have something of the passed away person, like a cologne or a smell that they like, or an article of clothing or a pin or jewelry that you can wear to honor them, so that it's almost as if there's a piece of their spirit in the perfume bottle or on the clothing that you have on you at all times. So you're almost saying, whoever this person is, that they're with you always. So that's another nice way to honor them. Telling people about your loved one is so beautiful. To share stories, funny ones, serious ones. What is it that they say? That you'll have 2 deaths. One is when your body dies, and the second one is when the last person speaks your name for the last time. And so that's your second death, is when people don't remember you anymore, when you're not talked about anymore, you're not thought about anymore, you're not whispered about. That's your second death. So you actually keep your loved ones alive by telling stories, creating scrapbooks, telling your children or other people about who this person is. This keeps them alive forever and ever. So yeah, what are favorite activities? And then when there's certain special occasions, ceremonies, weddings, births, graduations, anniversaries, birthdays, holidays, any of that stuff, these are all also moments where you can call them in, invite them into the space, think about them,
hold a space for them, whether it's lighting a candle for them, to have a seat open for them, even though they're physically not going to sit there. Their spirit can. It's letting them know that they're welcome into that space. So I think that those are some minor rituals that could be done. What does your culture say? How do they honor the dead? Are there other cultures that you think maybe have it a little bit better than we do? Because when it comes to white people, I feel like we lack some really beautiful traditions that could be really great. Now, respect and honor when they're not of your own lineage, that you're not taking. But, you may look into what resonates for you and how that can be helpful for you to honor and respect the dead. Go through the grief process and understand that the 5 stages of grief are not linear. You don't start at 1, move to 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and then you're done. You may start at anger, jump to sadness, go into a state of denial or numbness, and then come back to anger, and then acceptance. You can just jump all around all the different stages. So don't judge yourself and be kind and gentle to yourself during the process. A lot of people find that the very first of anything is the most difficult when they've lost somebody very important to them. So the first Christmas, the first New Year's, their first birthday, your first birthday, anything that's of meaning will be the hardest, and that's okay. Be kind to yourself. Be prepared that if maybe you need some time off of work, if you need some additional assistance to help you, that you're ready, that in case it hits you, you'll be ready. This is the other thing to know about grief is you may be fine and be like, oh, wow, I thought I'd be sad and I guess I'm not, so I guess I didn't love that person. No. Grief can slap you in the face and it could come out of nowhere. And this is all part of it. So I have a client whose loved one just passed away from COVID. Literally this week they told me that they just passed away. And they were upset that they were not upset. And I had to explain to them that is part of it. That's part of the quote unquote denial, numbness phase of grief. So you may feel like you've gone through it and you're fine after a few months or a few weeks or a few days. And then a song will come on in the grocery store and it will remind you of them, and whoosh, it comes flooding all back in. And that can kind of happen throughout your lifetime. So if it does, it's not abnormal. There's nothing wrong with you. This is just part of it, right? It's really tough to say goodbye when we can't physically be with them anymore. But I think something that's helpful to me, at least, is how I think about life after death. So this could be another question to ask yourself when you're not deep in the grief process is, what do I actually believe happens once the physical body is dead? Is the body, worm food and then that's it, lights out, done? Do you believe in a heaven and in hell? Do you believe in purgatory for certain behaviors or acts? Do you believe in the spirit form, which lives on and will come back in a different life, maybe in another creature, maybe in another human form? So be open to that. Oh, one thing I do really like to ask some of my clients when they're having a tough time is what do you think that they would say to you right now? If it's a fresh death, how would they comfort you? Or fresh loss, how would they comfort you? If it's a struggle that you're having, what would they say to you right now, right? You've spent enough time with them and they were meaningful enough to you that kind of how to channel their personality in to kind of answer these questions for you. So it's almost as if they can give you guidance from the other side, even if you don't believe that anything happens after the body dies. You can still ask yourself, what would my grandpa say to me today? Or what would my wife do in this moment? Any of those questions. I really think that connects us on a very 3D level, where if you don't believe in anything beyond this earth, that's fine. But that still is kind of like a way to get them into your space. So, as it relates to my own beliefs about what happens after death, I believe that our spirit is a form of energy, and energy cannot be destroyed. It just transforms. So, in my personal belief, I see it as a transition. It's almost like either a waking up from this reality into a different reality, that our spirit is very connected in still. So like I tell my husband that I'm like, I plan to die before you because I'm a wuss and I can't deal with you being gone. So I'm going to bestow that upon you to deal with my death. And so I'm like, I'm going to come back and haunt your ass so that you know that I'm still here. And these are the ways in which I'm going to haunt you in like a loving way, because we both kind of feel the same thing. We both believe that he's going to keep all the cabinet doors open to remind me that he's around. And I can't remember what I said to him of what I would do to let him know that I'm still around, but I'm sure it's something like sweet and romantic. And for him, he's just going to like open up all the cabinet doors, like literally all of them, because that's what he does in this current lifetime. And I'm like, oh, that's how I know he's been in this room, is because no doors have been closed. And, but yeah, so I do believe that you can talk to your loved ones. Wouldn't recommend trying to talk to them through a Ouija board, because I think that that's mostly trickster energy. But you can do meditations where you try to connect in with their spirit. You can do automatic writing where you try to call in their spirit and see if if the energy, their intentions, their thoughts will come through paper and pen. But yeah, I just believe that when we physically die, that our body will go into a little bit of, I think a lot of spiritual people will say a couple of years, you need to let that spirit rest, because they are transitioning from earth reality back into purely spirit reality. And so, they've got to, I don't know how to describe it, but it made sense when other people said it. And now I can't figure out what words to use to describe what that is like. But it's like they need to decompress from this craziness, depending on how their life went. There may be some reflecting that they need to do. So for instance, with suicide and with my father, the way that it was described in The Journey of the Souls, which I really liked how they described it, and a lot of it resonated with me, and actually was like aha moments, because there were things that I intuitively believed and had no reason to, because there was nothing in my society that said that. And I was just like, I don't know, I guess I'm weird. I think this. But it was like, for folks that die by suicide, they said like, well, God, or whatever you want to call God, doesn't judge you for anything that you do ever. Which I'm like 100% I agree with, because how can God be all-knowing and all-loving and know what you've been through and then judge you for doing what you've done if they know if they can if God could walk a mile in your shoes, they would know why you did everything you did. So why would you be judged? You know. And so it was like, you don't get judged. You're not judged for wrongdoings or for taking your own life, but you may need some time, say with a spiritual guide in the spirit realm, to review choices that you made in your life, because we have free will, and how it impacted you and how it impacted others, and to like lovingly have a timeout to just reflect. And I was like, I really like that, because it's not punitive, and it's still compassionate, because if somebody takes their lives, they were in anguish for a long time, right? And when people have done really bad, hurtful things, it's not because they were enjoying life. You know, most likely they had some pretty awful things happen in their life, and eventually they just gave up. So I really liked how that was described, and I really agree with that. And then, you know, you get to go do some cool spiritual stuff. Like, who knows what we do, whether it's like go learn some spiritual lessons, see your friends. I really do believe that. Like, I think that when we first walk over the Rainbow Bridge, that we're greeted with our favorite pets, you know, and then we're greeted by our soul family and maybe our physical family that have crossed over as like a remembrance, like, hey, welcome. Oh, speaking of which, I just want to say, funny that this was my topic, and I swear I've been thinking about this for a few weeks, but the Disney movie Soul, I thought, was really good. They did a really good job at describing a lot of this. So if you want more detail and you want a nice way of looking at life after death, I think Soul is a really beautiful production. Sadly, you have to pay Disney to watch it, but you would have had to pay a movie theater anyway. But anyway, I thought that was really good. So, life after death, maybe you'll go do some spiritual stuff. Another thing about the loved ones when they pass is like, dream space is really a magical time that whether you remember it when you wake up or not, that can be a really easy way for spirit and our loved ones to communicate with us. So you may have some very vivid, realistic, lifelike dreams where the loved one comes and talks to you, or vice versa. You go and talk to them. If it feels really real, I would say assume that was real. It just happened in the spiritual plane and not in the human plane, not on the earthly plane. So my husband had a friend from back in the day who took her life, and he said, I think for like the first maybe 6 months or so, he had a few dreams with her in it where she was like saying hi and that she cared about him, and eventually she said goodbye and she never showed back up in his dreams. And it was because, you know, she was trying to help him deal with the loss and saying like, it's okay, I'm in a good place, I'm happy, I'm okay, everything's fine, I'm better now. And then once she knew that he was okay and that they did get to have their goodbyes, then she was able to finally stop visiting him in his dreams, and he moved on. And I just think that 100% when it comes to communicating with spirits, we are definitely doing that in our dream space. If you remember it, for sure it is happening. If you don't remember it, that's okay. You can assume that it's happening. You just are not able to remember, or you're not supposed to remember, and that's okay. So dream space is big. So if you want to go and talk to your loved one, you can set an intention that while you sleep, that you would like to connect in with that loved one and tell them how you think or feel or what have you. And, do whatever kind of protections you can to just make sure that if you are going to talk, that you're safe. You should be anyway, but I don't know. I'm just all about the protection anyway. So I think that's hopefully some good tips and tricks around that. So I'm going to take a break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about metaphysical deaths and just some things going on right now in my life. All right. See you shortly. All right. So that is the major gist of death energy when it comes to physical death. And as I said before, when it comes to non-physical death, that the rituals, the tips for grief and loss are all very similar. It just needs to be maybe altered or changed a little bit. So there are lots of different ways to have loss. And, with this fucking year, I mean, this whole year has just been a big pile of loss. So many people have lost jobs, financial freedom. They have lost careers, relationships up the wazoo, and a lot of inventory has been an opportunity for this year. I think one of the things that we were called as a human collective around the globe is to take inventory in 2020. 2020 hindsight is 2020. 2020 is perfect vision. And so last year was all about seeing things clearly. And when we see things clearly, we have to allow death to occur. And the reality is that if it's not meant for us anymore, it will be ripped from us. And there are times where we just have to step up and say that is no more for us. So this fucking last 3 or 4 weeks specifically have been incredibly intense with this energy. This year has been hard, and I think some of the astrologers were saying that the Jupiter and Saturn conjunction that just happened and winter solstice, it was like all the energy that happened from like March to July was like slammed into a week. And let me tell you, I fucking felt that shit on so many levels. Like energetically, it felt intense. And then it was like day after day after day, it was like slapped in the face, slapped in the face, slapped in the face. And the whole point of this year is to like take a fucking look at yourself and your life and figure out what's not working for you. And if you don't choose to allow the things that aren't working for you to just go away, then if it's in your highest and greatest good for them to be gone, they will be ripped from you and it will be crumbled. And so sometimes it's easier if we just go, okay, I'll do it. So, in some instances, friendships have been rocked recently, which sucks. Whether it's realizing that people that you used to really jive with, you just don't have a lot to talk about anymore, or if it's actual discord happening where you're fighting and things are blowing up in your face and you're just like, wait, what? How the fuck did that happen? And then obviously with COVID being just 10 times worse now than it has ever been this entire year, it is just rocking people. And obviously this whole year of financial hardships, the lockdown continuously, and just being like, so many of people's like normal coping skills are just gone. And it's hard to deal with that for 9 months straight and have very little reprieve. And so for the folks that are adapting and going with it as opposed to fighting against it, I think that there can be a little bit more ease around it. But it doesn't mean that just because you are flowing with things that it's all going to be easy, because sure as fuck it is not. So yeah, there's just so much going on. And so one of the things that I've been dealing with for the last couple months outside of hibernation mode is trying to release with intention the old me, because that was one of the inventory that I took this year, was like, wow, I made this huge life change this year. Well, last year now, shit. In 2020, I made a huge change and stepped away from my my government job and pursued being my own boss and stepping really deep, like diving deep into my spirituality. One of the things my shaman suggested that I do, which I think is a good thing for you to do if you didn't already, is to actually write down all of the things that you learned, all of the things that you gained this year. And how far I've come was crazy. It was like 24 separate things, which each one was pretty significant. Each single item was pretty significant. And I'm like, wow, 2 major things every month I'm working through, I'm gaining, I'm pushing past, I'm like fucking, just going to town on it. And so one of the things I think we all need to look at as we're starting out 2021 is who are we? Who are we really? Because the death really isn't that we are dying. It's the parts of us that aren't real, the parts of us that we have put up a fake mask of to please others, to fit in better, to make our bosses or our parents or friends or family happy. All those masks really are what need to die. At least it's an opportunity that we can take or not, and I'm taking it. I have been saying now for a while, I want to release the old Lindsay, the one that has all these beliefs about herself, about what she's capable of, what she's good for. Just what her purpose is, what quieting her voice, like all these things that I just don't want to keep doing anymore. I just want, more than anything, is to just authentically be me, and not authentically be me around safe people, but I really need to be authentically me around everybody. My stepson said over the weekend, like, Lindsay, you have your shield up with me about your spirituality, and I have my shield up with you about things that are going on in my life. He's like, I need you to drop your shield first. And I was like, damn, mic drop, bitch. He's right. He's right. I need to be ballsier, because if I want to help others, like just full stop, help others, period, I have to fully be me, to show others that it's okay for them to be fully them. Because when I silence my voice, or when I quiet my beliefs, or when I, shuffle around some things so that it lands a little bit gentler or easier, then I'm not giving other people permission to just fully be themselves. And so that is something that I want to have happen in 2021. And let me tell you, when you ask, Spirit gives. And so some of that stuff has been happening these last few weeks. I've been I have had a nasty cold on and off for close to 3 weeks now. No, I don't have COVID, so you don't have to worry about that. But I do believe, I think on Lacey Free was on Jessa Reed's podcast recently. I think it was on Patreon. So if you're not on Jessa Reed's Patreon or Sobericious Patreon, you may not have heard this content, but it was really good. And Lacey was talking about mucus, and how mucus, if I remember how she said it correctly, it was kind of like a vehicle to release stuff from our bodies. It's literally like you're blowing your nose, you're sneezing, your eyes are watering, like literally it is releasing the infection or what have you from your body. And spiritually speaking, I'm like, oh damn, that's what's happening for me right now. I think that's why for the last 2 to 3 weeks I've had this cold. I normally am a very healthy person. And I have had, this all started before the boys came home. I've had my bubble since mid-March. I've been in this bubble where, aside from occasional grocery store and a couple of friends that I saw in these 9 months, I have not left my house. So my husband didn't have a cold. I got the cold. I have the cold. And whether it's a legit like cold, made from nature and passed to me from another, or if it's my spiritual releasing of the old me coming out physically in my body, then I think that that's a definite, and I may just have a cold as well. So like it may be that that's the conduit. But anyway, I am trying to release the old me, which is mind, body, and, well, soul is essence. And so there's, that just is, but my mind and my body is what I'm trying to release. So my mind and all the beliefs I've had about who I am up until this point, and what I'm supposed to do and who I'm supposed to be and how I'm supposed to please others and put everyone else before me and, push for others and sacrifice, and then resentment and anger and what have you. And then physically, obviously there's so much belief about my physical body and healing that needs to happen, both with, my lung problem and then just, little things here and there that I'd like to let go of and have a new and improved body. Like, that'd be fun, right? But regardless, it's all happening at once. And so as I step more into, this year I've found out more of who I actually am, spiritually speaking, and why I'm here and what I'm supposed to do, and stepping in and bridging the gap with spirituality and mental health and embracing that. And as I have to do that and embrace my authentic self, I have to let go of the programming from society about who I am as a woman, who I am as a wife and as a stepmom and as a daughter and as a sister and as a friend. And I also have a lot of programming that I have to let go of as it relates to mental health. And how do I find an ethical and moral way to pursue therapy with my therapy clients that is authentic to who I am, and also not, violating any principles or policies or anything like that. So how do I let go of some of the science part that is outdated and embrace my intuition even deeper in an appropriate way? How do I step into this spiritual, I'll just say spiritual leader, because I there are a lot of like fucked up words I just don't resonate with. So as a leader in spiritual awakening and spirituality, like how do I step into that more authentically? So death of me is happening, and it can be scary because just like leaving my job, I'm jumping in a way without a net and going, I know there's going to be a net, because like if it can happen for my job, it can definitely fucking happen for this. Allowing more spiritual gifts to come online and not be afraid and believe myself when things feel like mentally I'm wrong. And then, if y'all have tried to follow your intuition, it's not logical. a lot. You just got to kind of believe that it's real, and then hopefully it is, and, try to get validated. But then how do you keep that all in check so that you don't become like a guru or one of those other fucking fill in the blank spiritual terms where, they let their ego run the show and not let spirit run the show. And so, yeah. So that's been hard. I've been trying to deal with that and to look at it, and it's been scary at times. And then on top of that, our dog Baxter, he is 12, but I think that the shelter told me wrong as to how old he is. He is pretty blind. He is pretty deaf. His hips hurt him all the time. He's in a lot of pain. His mobility is fucked. He falls down the stairs and no longer can walk up the stairs at all. Like, it's been a progression, and it went from like, oh, he can't really hear us. It's cute. Our little puppy, who's 2 years old, but she's 6 pounds, so she'll always be a fucking puppy. But our little one, Nova, we would say, hey, Nova, where's Baxter? And then she'd like go tearing through the house and find him, and then nudge on his ear and be like, look, Mom and Dad want you. And then she is his seeing and hearing dog. So when he's out in the backyard and going potty and he hasn't come in yet, we'll be like, Nova, go get Baxter, and she'll run and go grab him and bring him inside. So she's been great. So that has been our reality for the last year or so. Well, in the last few months, he has taken a massive turn for the worse. And it started with he would jump at the wrong, the last stair he would miscalculate, and he would hurt himself. He always seemed fine. I think it was myself and my husband who were scared, and our emotions were fucked, but he would it would just be the last step or two, and he'd do a little tumble. Then it got to halfway down the stairs, and he would barrel roll down because his legs would give out, and it broke our fucking heart. And it happened a few too many times, and so we got a baby gate at the bottom of the stairs so he wouldn't go up and down the stairs, because he used to always love to go up and down the stairs, hang out upstairs, hang out in the bathroom, hang out in the bedroom. And then we're like, sorry buddy, that's over. Then it got to a point where he just can't even walk upstairs anymore at all. His legs will not take him up the stairs, so we carry him upstairs every day. Got to the point where we carry him down the stairs because we put a little yoga mat at the bottom of the stairs so that if he did fall down a stair or two from time to time, he would be, protected. And then it was just happening too often that we're like, okay, we're just carrying him up and down the stairs now. And so, I know that there will be a day where we shouldn't even do that. And that will be towards the end, I think, when I'll just stay downstairs with him to keep him company and just love on him. But in this period of time, right around the winter solstice, when this energy was really, really intense for us, he was out in the backyard going to the bathroom. It was dark out, and he is out there longer than Nova, because Nova's it's too cold, it's under 70 degrees, I'm shivering, I need to come inside. And he's like, I'm living my best life, eating rabbit poop. And so I told Nova, hey, go get Baxter. And when she came back, she didn't have him. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll go get him. And so I walked outside, and I couldn't find him. And I was like, oh, that's weird. And then I look over, and he's in the pool. And he had fallen in at some point. I don't know how long he was in the pool. but he fell in and he was able to swim to the edge where the stairs are. But because his legs and his hips are, in such bad shape right now, he couldn't pull himself out of the pool. So he was just in there with his head above the water and just sort of sitting there waiting. And it broke my heart. I pulled him out and we, washed him and warmed him up and I was like, okay, that's it. We're not, it's just every week it's been something, whether he's going to the bathroom in the house when he used to never do that. We just know, we can tell, he's declining very quickly, and it's just hard to face this, right? Just like it would be, well, maybe not just but he's like my baby. And so it's really hard to watch him not do so well. And he's got 2 modes. He's either pacing or sleeping. And he's given meds, and we want to just make sure he has a good quality of life. And the one thing that brings me joy is that he and Nova still play more days than not, but those are starting to get to be less and less. But they play for, a good couple of minutes where he might instigate, or he definitely is having a good time. His tail's wagging and he's happy, and I just love his cuddles, and I just want to make sure that he has a good quality of life. But we know, at least I know, that we won't have much longer with Baxter. And that is another hard one to have to face, is knowing that soon my first adult dog on my own won't be with me. So I'm trying to suck up every moment I have with him, cuddle him harder, love on him more, take pictures, create memories, but make sure that he's having a good time too. So dealing with that. And then just relationships that aren't the same that they used to be, and trying to make peace with that. Death could simply be that it's not what it used to be, but that doesn't mean that it has to just go away because myself and somebody else maybe aren't as aligned as we used to be. But that doesn't mean that they have to leave because of that. It just could maybe shift a little, and that could be okay. But it's hard to watch that, especially during the holidays, having that happen, and sitting with that reality of fuck, man, I really love this person, and it just doesn't seem to be the same. And maybe it's just because we're all going through some shit and it will be different, but maybe it just means that we're on different pages, because I've changed a lot in this year. So, and then, having family that change, they themselves change, and it's okay, is this a permanent change? Is this a temporary change? I don't know, but that's another loss you have to deal with, is this person isn't the same person that they used to be, and you miss that old person. Yeah, it's just so much fucking shit, y'all. I know y'all know it, because nobody got out of 2020 unscathed in some way or another. Everyone got handed a shit show, and just in varying different ways, so I don't know. I hope that maybe I should have ended on the tips and rituals and fun stuff, but loss is loss. And so if you're here are some tips and tricks for when we're processing things other than a physical death, is you can write a letter to the people that either have actively hurt you because they did something, or they have said something to you. And so maybe you write them an angry letter, but do not fucking mail it or give it to them. You fucking tear that shit up, okay? Angry letters are great, but then tear it up. Maybe you write the old version of you a letter, or you sit in meditation and you connect in with a representation of the old you and love that version of you and thank them for all that they've done for you up until this point and how they helped you to survive really tough situations, or they got you to be ambitious or to get through and accomplish certain things because they were so driven. Like, there was a period of time where I would just sit there and look at my laptop and just visualize me, like literally from a week or two ago, so looks the same as fucking me today, and just say thank you to that Lindsay that's so worried that she's not doing enough for her clients, that she isn't kind enough to her clients, that she isn't smart enough for her clients, that she isn't helpful enough to her clients, and thank that version of her for being so ambitious and taking her job so serious and trying so hard, but that version of me had to go. I can't keep, I do type for my job, trust me. As therapists, we have a lot of typing to do, but I just like envision myself just like cartoon style, like hammering away at the laptop to like symbolize the effort, right? Because the mental effort, you can't visualize that. I look the same with my brain going a mile a minute versus like nothing at all. But visually, I could envision like pounding away at the keyboard to symbolize the amount of pressure I put on myself with each client, and that she needed to go, but that I loved her because she got me to this point. You know, she got me through grad school and all that shit. So maybe that's something that you do. Or, I think gratitude and forgiveness can go a long way when it comes to people in our life. And that includes gratitude and forgiveness for ourselves. So, and that can include gratitude and forgiveness for those that leave us, like physically die. You can have gratitude for everything and honor and respect everything that they've added to your life and what they've taught you and how they supported you. And then you can forgive them for being a human and the mistakes that they made and let that go. So I think that that's really important. You know, same with like if you lose a partner, if a boss fires you and they're a complete and total asshole. Okay, cool. Thank you, all of you, for opening up the space for something more in alignment with what I need, where I'm at. Because that's the newness, that's the birth. We need the old to die to birth in the new. Whatever you're trying to manifest, there has to be a death, whether it's the death of a belief that was holding you back, or death of the relationship. So your partnership has to crumble so that you have space for a new partner to come in, right? So gratitude and forgiveness. Forgiving myself for believing that I should silence myself to make others happy. Right? So, yeah. I think that that's a great place to end because it's on a little bit of a positive note. So, Happy New Year, everyone. I think if you haven't already done this, it could be really beneficial for you to take inventory of 2020. On one piece of paper, you can write down all the things that you lost, that were taken from you, that changed in a negative way, all the fucked up shit that had happened. Write that down on a piece of paper and ceremoniously get rid of it. And on another piece of paper, what did you learn and gain from 2020. Separately, what do you want for 2021? More than just a New Year's resolution of I need to lose 10 pounds. What did 2020 give you an opportunity for, and did you take it? Right? With this whole COVID lockdown shit. If we are coming close to an end in the next, 3 to 6 months, did you use that time this last year to the highest and greatest good? And if you didn't, time's not up. Time will never be up until time is up, and then time is still not up. So what can you learn? What can you do now? Take that moving forward and, have an idea as to what you would like, generally speaking. And then, if you want to manifest, there are tons of people out there that do really good on manifestation. Jessa Reed and Noah Lampert are both really good describing on how to manifest. I've also got an episode on how to manifest. I think, who is it? Oh, there's a podcaster. Oh, God, now I can't remember. But there's podcasts and YouTubes and everything that you can imagine about manifestation. So it doesn't have to be me. I don't really care. Just set your intentions to what you want so that you can get what you want, and let this be a new beginning. Take care, everyone. I love you all so much. I really appreciate starting this relationship. Shit. We started that in 2020. So thank you for our time together. And I look forward to what we have moving forward and how this podcast will continue to grow and evolve. If you would like to get a hold of me in any way, please reach out to me either on Instagram at The Intuitive Psychologist, _. You can email me at intuitive.psych.111@gmail.com. You can go to my website, intuitive.psych.com. intuitivepsych.com. I don't know. There'll be something at the end that describes all of my ways to get a hold of me. But thank you all so much, and Happy New Year.
Thank you all so much for listening to this podcast. It really means the world to me. And if you find this information and content useful, please go rate and review the podcast and share it with anyone that you think might also benefit from this content. On Instagram, my handle is The Intuitive Psychologist 111, _. And on there you will see I've got inspirational messages to share. And on Wednesdays at 1:30 Pacific Standard Time, I will go on and either do a live guided meditation or present a specific topic ahead of time. You can submit your questions and I will answer them live, along with any questions that you have on the live chat. So that's been a really fun place to get a lot of interaction from my listeners and followers. If you've got any questions, comments, concerns, topic ideas, guests you'd like to return, please feel free to email me. My email is intuitive.psych.111@gmail.com. So that is intuitive.psych, which is spelled PSYCH.111@gmail.com. If you're looking to work with me and you would like to have some assistance during the early stages of a spiritual awakening or any sort of early stages of coming into your spirituality, please feel free to look at my website. My website is intuitivepsych.com, intuitivepsych.com, and you can book a free 30-minute consultation to let me know what you're looking for and make sure that I am the best person to help you out. If you're in California and you're looking for spiritual therapy, feel free to also email me at the same email, intuitive.psych.111@gmail.com. And again, you will get a free 30-minute consultation to see if your mental health needs and my services are a good fit. So, again, thank you all so much for your support, your interactions, and just moving the conversation forward and continuing to give back in any way that you can. Not just for me, but just for everybody out there. Don't forget, folks, you are the light.